Welcome. I'm Cristina Marinetti, and I'm the Program Director for the Cardiff MA Translation Program. We really appreciate your interest in our program. Now, I would normally be able to welcome you here in Cardiff, show you around our school, see your face, shake your hand, maybe chat over a nice cup of coffee. I'm Italian, so I would have made sure that is a good cup of coffee too. And so the best thing we could do was record this session remotely. Why should you study translation? Why is it now a particularly good time to train as a translator or interpreter? Now, it could be argued that there's never been a better time to study translation. Businesses, institutions, organizations, and governments are increasingly working across borders and across languages. And this leads to a growing need for high-level intercultural, interlingual mediation. Now, while many people speak English and more than one language, there is a real shortage of translation and interpreting experts with high-level language skills who can negotiate across languages. Now, this is probably because translation and interpreting is one of the hardest intellectual tasks one can embark on. In fact, there are actually areas of the brain that have been shown, with MRI scans by neuroscientists that are only activated by the task of translation and interpreting. There are literally areas of the brain that only fires up when you're engaged in translation and interpreting. You may want to study translation because you know how fascinating a subject it is, but why should you choose Cardiff? One of the things we do really, really well is this fact that we bring together theory and practice from the outset and prepare you for both a career in the translation industry and PhD study. While many other MAs specialize early, really, at Cardiff we have a more flexible approach and we give you time in the first semester to decide what you want to do. Many of you may know that you're interested in studying translation, but you may not yet know whether you want to continue do a PhD or enter the translation profession. So we'll give you that kind of flexibility. Our MA structure is also quite flexible for this reason. So in the first semester, you study some core basic modules, and in the second semester, you specialize. So we'll give you that time to decide. If you are interested in becoming a translator, we also give you the opportunity to translate in any language pair that you want. This is also a unique feature of our master, that we don't necessarily ask you to choose which language you want to work in at the outset. If you have more than one language, perhaps some heritage language that you may not have studied at university, but you're keen to develop as one of your translation languages, you can definitely do that with us. This is actually quite useful because it can help you add more languages to your CV, which is a very important asset for the translation profession. Now, if you're interested in a PhD, so if you're interested in pursuing further study rather than perhaps entering the translation profession, we also have a very good track record of progress onto PhD. Every year we secure about 1 to 3 PhD scholarships for various national and international funding bodies, and we've been very successful with PhD completion. What else makes Cardiff a great place to study? And I think this is actually one of the main aspects that makes us a very good place to study, and is the fact that we're a very, very supportive team. This is very important for us because we really feel that more than teachers and students, we are a community of scholars, a community of translators, a community of multilingual speakers with passion for languages. And you can ask any of our former students, they'll tell you that they're still in touch with us. Now, one of the things that I love most about working here is our community and the fact that it's truly international. We have colleagues from a range of countries around the world. In the School of Modern Languages alone, we have colleagues from 35 different countries. And now here in the slide, you'll see only a very small selection of the staff that will teach you. We all have different educational backgrounds and different language expertise. My own specialization is theatre and the media, but there are colleagues working on as varied subjects as subtitling, interpreting, medical translation, legal translation. We're all multilingual, and between us, we cover a fair amount of languages, as you can see. On to the degree itself. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the modules that we offer and what kind of options you can study. So the course is structured so that in the first semester, we give you the foundational knowledge in translation theory and translation methods, which you will then apply in the second semester to your specific language pair through a series of practical modules. So in the first semester, you'll have 2 modules only, and they're 30 credits each. There's a theory of translation module where we'll go over the key areas of knowledge that help us understand what translation is as a concept, as a practice, as a profession. And then there's also a translation methods class, which will give you the techniques and the building blocks to be able to analyze a text, to be able to create adequate and validated terminologies, and to be able to approach the task of translation from a professional perspective. In the second semester, on the other hand, you can choose 4 optional modules across a range of different topics. Now, for example, if you're interested in the translation profession and want to go straight into translation after the MA, you can choose all specialized modules, from subtitling to medical translation, technical translation, and interpreting. Now, if you're more interested in the theoretical side, in questions around the nature of translation, the history of translation, the neuroscience of translation, you can choose from a range of cultural and theoretical modules, like, for example, a translation and second language acquisition, translation and adaptation in the arts. Now, another important point is that our modules are not actually tied to one specific language or to a specific language pair, but you can take any modules we offer in any language that you speak. Of course, your level of the language needs to be high enough for you to be able to translate from it. So, for example, if you speak French, Spanish, Welsh, and English, and some of our students do, you could take subtitling using Spanish-English and then interpreting using Welsh-English. There's a full degree of flexibility in the languages that you choose. We offer a range of languages in-house, so supported by and taught by us, including interpreting, Chinese, and Japanese, alongside all of the European languages. But we also rely on a network of affiliated translation professionals who cover additional languages. And just to give you an idea, some of the rarer languages that we've had in the past have been things like English Kurdish, for example. We currently have a student who's specializing in English Farsi, and we have a specialized translation tutor who's supporting her. So our degree is really, really flexible when it comes to your language pair. Now, more specifically, I want to look at a couple of modules to give you an idea of what you'll be studying more in detail. But maybe among you, there's some students interested in interpreting. Now, you'll be pleased to hear that this year we've introduced a new interpreting pathway in our MA. Now, interpreting is usually defined as oral translation, of course, and is one of the most challenging and mentally taxing tasks you can undertake. But it's also the best paid form of translation. Now, if you're interested in interpreting, you can try it out in the second semester by taking Introduction to Interpreting, which covers the main skills that an interpreter needs: note-taking, consecutive interpreting, simultaneous interpreting, sight translation. These are some of the skills needed by interpreters. But if you're really, really committed to interpreting, and that's one of your main areas of interest, you can also take 2 optional modules and the dissertation on an interpreting topic, and that would give you 40% of the degree dedicated to interpreting. We also work very closely with professional associations. So, for example, our interpreting modules are designed according to the requirements of the DPSI, which is the Diploma in Public Service Interpreting, and is the main professional qualification recognized in the field. So, looking at our suite of modules, there is also another module that always attracts students' attention, and that's the placement module. We've introduced it a few years ago, and since then it's been incredibly successful. We've grown the number of employers that we join forces with, and it's been a great opportunity for our students to get a sense of what the translation industry actually entails through short placements. So the training placement runs throughout the year and allows you to get really hands-on experience in the translation industry. You'll be working for around 35 hours, 1 week roughly, and this can be done either remotely, as if a freelance translator would do, or on site. Now, we've done this in the past with Wolfstone Translation, which is the largest translation industry in Wales. And students have been very, very positive about the experience of actually hands-on translation and what it teaches them that the environment classroom doesn't. Some of the activities that they've been involved in, for example, are quality assessment of translations, which is not something that you necessarily do in class, terminology management, proofreading. So they're really great opportunity to further develop your professional skills. We have a range of employers that we work with, and what we try and do is match the employer with your interests. So, for example, if you are specializing in medical translation and that's the area, your area of expertise, the area where you want to specialize, we'll match you with the Doctors Academy, which is a large organization that provides training to medical professionals from across the world. And they do really, really important work. Some of our current students, for example, are working with the Doctors Academy on translating guidelines for physiotherapists on exercises to support patients who have COVID-19. And they're working very closely with some of the physiotherapists at Cardiff University who are working with colleagues in France and Spain to help them develop these guidelines in their languages. So it's really hands-on work. These are the kind of things that you can study during the MA, but I also wanted to talk about the kind of career options that you might have once you finish the MA. Our graduates have a range of different career options. There's obviously the PhD route, if you're interested in teaching or if you're interested in a career in academia. And as I said before, we're quite experienced in helping you secure funding for PhD study. But there's also obviously, if you're interested in the translation profession, a wide range of careers that are open to you after the MA. There are some recent graduates, for example, who've set up their own businesses. There's one in particular I'm thinking about who set up her own subtitling business in Italy and now works with Netflix, Amazon Prime, and a range of other film festivals. And she's been very entrepreneurial and now employs a number of our students, of our graduates, who've specialized in subtitling. Now, generally, about 30% of our MA students tend to find a job in the translation industry within about 2 months of completing the master's. And that's quite a good track record so shortly after the MA. Others go on to other careers in the language-related industry, but they use translation every day. Some examples of other careers can be journalism. There's one of our students, he works as a journalist at Euroactive, which is a news site specializing in the environment. And on a daily basis, he reads the news in French, Italian, and Spanish, and then writes articles and reports in English. So that's an alternative career. He wouldn't technically call himself a translator, but translation is effectively what he does every day. So there are a number of different career pathways that are open to you once you are a qualified translator. So as you can see, the MA can lead directly into a range of translation-related careers, but also a range of other careers that involve translation and language skills. Thank you for listening today and for your interest in our MA. I hope you found this talk useful, and if you'd like to know more, make sure you sign up for our free online course, Working with Translation. It's with FutureLearn, and it will give you an idea of the kind of things that we'll be doing in class. Also remember that if you have any questions, you can contact me via email. The email is on the slide. And I look forward to meeting you. In the meantime, keep safe and keep translating.